Hey, I'm Stephanie Hitz, and the purpose of this video is to provide a short informational session on ADHD. This will be brief, but there will be a lot of resources referred to and then provided to you at the end that you can access in the future as needed. So both the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and the APA, the American Pediatric Association, have the same definition for ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's one of the most common childhood disorders with the neurodevelopmental disorders, and it was usually first diagnosed in childhood and can last into adulthood. Children with ADHD have trouble with paying attention, controlling impulsive behaviors, and they might act out without thinking the consequences or be overly active. So they're classified as ADHD. The signs and symptoms are on the CDC website, and they list a few, but it's also important. Johns Hopkins takes it a step further because there's 3 different categories of symptoms that they can fall into. And here's just some of those on that list. So there's the inattention category. That's where you have students with a short attention span, difficulty listening to others, following directions. They are forgetful, poor organizational skills or study skills. And then there's impulsivity and hyperactivity. And then the impulsive, obviously, they often blurt out answers. They take frequent risks without weighing things through. The hyperactivity is students that fidget and move around and talk excessively and forgets things or loses things repeatedly and often. They can't stay on task. You'll hear that a lot. But these are all different categories, and some children that fall under the inattention category actually are overlooked because they're just not as loud and noisy as, or moving around as the students that are hyperactive. But actually most students diagnosed with ADHD have a mixture of symptoms from both. And then it also is important to know that most children's symptoms change with time and age, and the presentation may change over the time too. So a student that talks excessively or moves around a lot could actually end up being a student when they're older that's just forgetful or easily distracted, or is thought to have poor organizational skills. So not all students with ADHD are going to act the same way. They're all going to have different problems or different symptoms from their ADHD. And it's important to know that not all students will require help, and then some students might require more help. So one thing we want to do, because all that stuff on that list can make it so hard for them to pay attention in the classroom or to even be good on a behavior chart, is ditch the behavior chart. A lot of teachers are ditching their classroom behavior charts and opting for apps that communicate privately with children and their parents. I just want to show you this small example. Here's a teacher that made a classroom behavior chart. And you'll see my kids had these going to school. You've seen something like this before, where you have the student doing a good job and they get praised and they get their little clip moved to the top, and the children that are having a bad day, they're at the bottom, or they're normally on red, yellow or red, and that's kind of how she's got this set up in there. Well, what we want to make sure that we don't do is label a child as the bad child in the class, and that can easily be done with a child that has those symptoms. Adults would never go for a discipline system like that at work. I mean, we'd protest that. So why would you do that to your child? So remembering the golden rule and to treat others the way we want to be treated, and that we're in the business of dignity, that goes a long way, especially with those behavior charts. So in diagnosing ADHD, a professional usually will identify the ADHD in the child but it normally comes with the help of a team of teachers and parents in the history of the child's behavior at school. So, learning disabilities. The Learning Disabilities Association has said that on their page, they have this on there. This is a small paragraph I took from there. That ADHD falls under the category of other health impaired. So it's not a specific learning disability. So individuals with ADHD can qualify for accommodations under the ADA in the Section 504 as long as their ADHD impacts a major life function such as learning. And even though a child may not have ADHD or had not been diagnosed with it, if it affects their learning, they'll be eligible for that as well. So most students, and it's about 11% of students between 5 and 17, are diagnosed with ADHD. It's higher in boys and girls, as you can see. And to get to a number, this is showing that there's about 6.1 million children that have this in the United States. This is done with a national survey. If you see the age from 2 to 5, it's a lot lower. And the reason why is because the child has not been around people that long. They haven't been observed by other people and teachers and doctors yet. So the number is lower, and this is actually changing right now because they are allowing, starting last October, pre-K children to be diagnosed with ADHD. So you might see that number go up in the future. And like I said, that's continually climbing. We have more technology today and ways to communicate today to see that we actually do have students. And our teachers are more aware of it now than they have been in the past. So what does this mean for adult education? So in a public 2-year college, which is where I work, about 87% have seen students with ADD or ADHD enrolled in their classes. And also in a public 2-year college, about 13% of their students enrolled are identified as having ADHD. So what can we do to help them? So if a student has specific accommodation needs, these are some of the CDC recommendations for accommodations. Giving the students extra time, giving them breaks. Technology is a good one. And then in our classroom, just things that we can do for the whole classroom would be to have a good behavioral classroom management plan, organizational training, and this works for students for any age. You can also help by giving explicit instructions while doing what you can to enhance attention, organization, time management, and motivation in your classroom for everyone. I use a remind messaging system for my students, and as well as the due dates in the calendar and Blackboard assignments. And I also utilize the announcements in Blackboard each week to offer extra lab sessions or extra lab times to everybody that could utilize it. So this is some of the references that I've used. Feel free to look over this page or click on any of the links and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.